Across the American Southwest, there are roads where people say you should keep driving, no matter what you think you see at the edge of your headlights. There are homes where dogs suddenly go silent, where something scratches the wall after midnight, and where a voice outside the window sounds almost human, but not quite. And in many of those stories, one word is whispered more than any other: Skinwalker. But what is a skinwalker really? And why has the idea become one of the most feared legends in the American Southwest? In popular internet horror, the word skinwalker is often thrown around too loosely. People use it to describe strange creatures in the woods, eerie animals caught on camera, or almost anything that looks unnatural at night. But in its original context, the idea is more specific and much darker. The skinwalker legend comes from Diné, or Navajo, belief. In that context, a skinwalker is not simply a random monster or a wild animal. It is generally understood as a dangerous witch, a human being associated with harm, taboo, and the misuse of power. That distinction matters, because what makes the legend so disturbing is not just the idea of transformation. It is the idea that something human has become deeply wrong. Something that should belong to the world of people has crossed into something predatory, hidden, and malevolent. That is also why many people treat the subject carefully. For some, these stories are not just campfire entertainment. They are part of a living cultural understanding of danger, imbalance, and things better left alone. So in this video, we are staying broad and respectful. We are not turning the topic into a how-to guide. We are not claiming to solve it, and we are not pretending that internet horror has preserved the original meaning perfectly. Instead, we are doing something simpler. We are asking why this legend still feels so powerful. And to understand that fear, it helps to look at the kind of story people tell when they say they encountered something they could not explain. It was late autumn in the high desert. A man in his early 30s had driven several hours to stay with family in a remote house far from town. The landscape around the property was dry and wide open. Scrub brush, old fencing, distant mesas, and long stretches of empty land that turned completely black after sunset. There were no streetlights, no close neighbors, and no real sound once the wind died down. He arrived just before dark. The house was old, quiet, and isolated. A dog paced near the porch and kept looking toward the open land behind the fence. At first, nothing felt especially strange. They ate, talked for a while, and settled in for the night. Then, sometime after midnight, he woke up to the sound of the dog whining. Not barking, not growling, whining. He lay still for a moment, listening. The house felt wrong in that way some places do at night. Too still, as if the silence itself were paying attention. He got up and walked to the window. At the far edge of the yard, just beyond the reach of the porch light, something was standing near the fence. At first, it looked like a coyote. That alone would not have been unusual. But this one wasn't moving. It was just staring at the house. Not pacing, not sniffing, not wandering, just watching. He stood there for several seconds, waiting for it to run. It didn't. Then it took a few slow steps forward, still staring. He backed away from the window, and that was when he heard a voice outside the front door. "Open up." He froze. The voice sounded like his brother. Calm, familiar, close. But his brother was supposed to be asleep in the next room. For a second, he tried to make sense of it. Maybe someone had stepped outside. Maybe he had misunderstood. Then the voice came again. "Open the door. I forgot my keys." This time he ran to the bedroom. His brother was there, still asleep, still under the blanket, still inside the house. He woke him up immediately. Both men stood in silence for a few seconds, listening. Then they heard it again. This time not from the front door, from outside the window. "I know you're awake." The dog began to cry. Not bark, cry. The two men moved slowly back toward the front room. One of them looked through the curtain. The animal was no longer at the fence. It was now much closer, near the porch. Its body still looked like a coyote at first glance. But something about its shape was wrong. Too tall, too deliberate, too aware. It stood there, staring directly at the house. Then, according to the story, it seemed to rise. Not in a dramatic movie monster way. Not with claws and flashing teeth. Just wrong. Like the outline of the animal no longer matched the movement. Like something human had briefly entered the shape. Both men stepped back from the window. Neither of them wanted to look again. A moment later, they heard something on the roof. A slow, heavy step, then another, then another. Not the light tapping of branches, not the scramble of a small animal. Footsteps, measured, patient, directly above them. No one in the house slept for the rest of the night. No one opened the door. No one went outside. They stayed inside until dawn. And when morning finally came, they stepped onto the porch and searched the ground around the house. They expected to find paw prints, but according to the story, that's not what they found. In the dirt outside the porch were human footprints, bare feet. The prints crossed the yard and stopped near the wall of the house. They did not lead away. They did not continue around the side. They simply ended, as if whoever made them had stood there watching and then vanished. Maybe every strange sound outside a desert house has an ordinary explanation. Maybe every silhouette at the roadside is just an animal in bad light. But stories like these persist because, for the people who tell them, the fear felt real. And when a voice outside your house sounds exactly like someone already inside, locking the door no longer feels like enough.